We're the only ones in the market that have this offering.
The partnerships we've had with our customers have been invaluable.
We invested in this machine, but L&H's leadership, the ownership, invests in their people.
Hello, welcome to Mining Now. As you can see, I'm not in the regular Mining Now studio. We're on site in Tempe, Arizona, at the L&H site. Jamie, Kaela, welcome to the show. Good to have you both on.
Thanks.
So we've got Jamie Meinen, product line manager, and Kaela Torres, you are the engineering manager at L&H. Just really quickly, Jamie, you've been on the show before at Meinen Expo. Maybe just quickly start with what's your role with the company?
Yeah, so the product line director for L&H, I look after all of our product lines, but specifically I focus on the mining shovels. I've grew up working for Bucyrus as a field service engineer, and then came on board with L&H 12 years ago now, and have been chasing around these machines, specifically rope shovels, in the Canadian market, U.S. market, and all of South America for quite some time now.
I was snooping around on the L&H through the team, and everybody's like 11, 12 or more years. Yeah. So there's something to be said about that. And Kaela, what's your role? First time on the show, you managed the project of actually putting this lathe in. So what's your day-to-day role when you're not putting one of these in the ground?
Oh yeah, sure. So I manage our engineering department here in Tempe. I also oversee our coordination team here in Tempe as well. Been with the company 17 years. Wow. 5 years at corporate and then 12 years here. So yeah, part of the average group, I guess. But yeah.
We have a lot to get into today. And I want to get into the shovels pretty quick. So I want people to understand the capabilities of what this machine does. So Kaela, I want to sort of kick things off too. It's just helping people understand where we're sitting and what we're sitting in. We're going to get into the shovels so people can understand the capacity that this machine has, but maybe just outline what this is.
Sure. Yeah. So we are sitting on the 27-foot diameter table, part of this VTL. So it can actually handle 250 tons on the table. So it doesn't even recognize that we're on it, I'm sure. So we brought it in, to, just really increase our capabilities here in Tempe and multiple markets as well. So
yeah, how we're gonna do a full. At the end of it, we'll talk a little bit more about the project itself. What kind of timeline does it take to install this? Because it's like 25 feet deep under the ground or something with the concrete. And
yeah, we had to go about 25 feet deep, about 7,000 cubic yards of concrete.
Wow.
To isolate this foundation. So it took 2 years, basically May of 2022, and we started making chips June 24. So.
Well, we got a lot to cut. We're going to circle back because we've already covered it a little bit when we were at Meinen Expo, but I want to jump back just into the project, the partnership that went into it and everything like that. But I really do want to get to what this machine actually does in specific. Maybe can we zoom out, Jamie, and just talk about what industries it serves first? I know you're going to focus on the shovels, but just on a macro level.
Yeah. I mean, the reason we put this machine into place was just for continuous improvement and offering, solutions to our customers that match our mission, vision, values. We want to maintain the biggest machines on the face of the planet. And this machine allows us to do that. So we're able to machine components on this particular machine for multiple different industries, power generation and mineral processing, even aerospace. We've quoted some recent projects in aerospace, and there's a laundry list of components under each one of those individual product lines.
What would be an example in the aerospace of something?
One of the recent projects we were looking at doing, and it's still in potential for us to win this, is a large mandrel for actually forming the profile of rockets.
Oh, I see.
Making the tooling that makes the rockets.
Right. Wow. Yeah. So it's something like either one of those, just to kind of give an idea, is that like a month project? Is that what kind of timeline? If someone says, go ahead and do it and you're starting to build it with this machine, what's the
Well, based on the capacity of it, obviously raw materials is a big factor on something like that. So if it's starting from scratch, it could be multiple months up to a year. The project that we were looking at likely wouldn't have finished until it could have started in February and finished in December. December, January. So some of them just based on the amount of material or the quality of material too, especially when you're getting into like aerospace and stuff like that. Sometimes they're using something a little bit more custom, or you have to find domestic material providers too. So that plays a big role into what you're working on. So just increases that timeline. So we really have to do a good job of kind of factoring in the schedule for this machine as well as everything else that you're quoting. So
one of the neat things about this machine, though, and one of the primary drivers for getting it was just the efficiency that it affords. So, we'll talk about it with some of the components on the rope shovel swing system, but we're seeing, anywhere from 2 to 3 times the efficiency, or the reduction in 2 to 3 times in the time it takes to machine specific components.
Yep.
This machine has capabilities that would normally require us to use 3 or 4 different machines in this shop to do the same job.
What would be the setup for that? Let's compare it. So what's a machine that, what would it take instead of 3, now you're down to 1?
Well,
what's the difference here?
The gear that we're sitting in, this is a ring gear for a 495 electric rope shovel. Normally this machine would go through 3 or 4 different setups. It'll still go through a few of them, but this machine is able to turn, so mill all of the surfaces, drill the bolting holes that we need to mount it, and at the end of the day, we want to be able to actually start cutting gear teeth with it as well. So with some additional tooling, we're going to be able to accomplish that and eliminate, let's say, 7 to 8 different setups on various different machines to maybe 2 on one machine.
Yeah. So you're looking at, the setup that they have to do here is just a couple risers and some additional blocking versus our other VTLs where you had to go get these really large risers and extend them on the table so they could handle a ring large enough. So you're looking at, there's about 2 days of, setting it up, you do the machining work, and then you have to tear it all down and then setting up on a milling machine. Which the great thing about this is that you can do all the milling. So it's not just turning, which a lot of machines have their VTL, but so they can do all the turning work, but they don't have the milling capacity. And that's where we have that additional, capabilities here, and we can minimize our setups and not have to use another milling machine.
Before I jump into the swings, I wanted to ask one more question about it. From the client side, what do they see? Is it a difference in, obviously 2 or 3 times? You've got a cost increase then, so they're going to see that. Is that the difference that they'll see? Or there's a timeline, I guess, as well as the other thing. What do they actually?
It's definitely a variable. If you're able to drive out cost of your offering, obviously your price becomes more competitive. But I think the real benefit to having this VTL, and specifically on swing systems, it affords us a level of accuracy that really is unmatched because we don't have those multiple setups. All of the machining can be done in one setup.
Right.
So there's no questions as to what the quality of this component is going to be when it's done.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because your components this big, they move. So you have them in a clamped position. When you go and pull them off of one machine to go clamp them into another one, you're dialing back in and taking all that time to get that precise setup versus when you have it on the same machine and you're just moving the head from the outside to the inside and top and bottom and then putting the milling attachments on.
Your quality controls going up, time spent going down, all that sort of thing. And
given the critical nature of swing systems in general, it's a very invasive and time-intensive, labor-intensive component to repair on a machine. Customers are not willing to risk that with somebody who they can't trust.
Right.
And that's where we not only leverage the machines, the capabilities that we have, but that engineering expertise, the manufacturing expertise, and the field service expertise that we've built over the last 60 years to help us deliver that value to the customer so that it's not just a price point decision, because it's such an important component of their machine. They're looking for somebody that they can trust and partner with.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, just before we go on, I wanted to mention just you've done over, I got a note here, you've done over 30 systems for these swing shovels or these shovels in the last 15 years.
Yep.
It's a lot of units out there.
Yeah. So there's a lot of units in the field. And with this new machine, I think we're going to be able to be more competitive and even increasing that number.
Well, yeah.
We've had great performance, great feedback from all of our customers who have run these machines. And the reason that they they chose us for them, like we talked about, was that partnership that we bring to the table. Some of the enhancements that we haven't really focused on yet that I think are also important to talk about are, when they actually have these machines in operation, what are some of the failure modes and some of the reasons that maybe they're taken off premature. So a lot of the updates that we have done specifically to like the geometry and design of the system have been around the rails themselves. So the thrust rails on both the Komatsu and Caterpillar designs, or the P&H and Bucyrus designs, they have been prone to issues in the past. So on the Komatsu design, it's actually integral to the gear itself. So the thrust surface is machined into the forging itself. L&H has come up with an upgrade to that where we actually take that portion of that gear out and put it in a replaceable configuration. So if they do have premature wear on that thrust surface, they can actually remove that portion of it and bolt in a new segment, just extending the overall life of that component. And the same on the 495. The thrust rail height of the original equipment that was given with the machine or brought with the machine is significantly undersized, and there's a lot of wear that develops early on in the life. So we've updated the geometry on our swing system to make an improvement to that overall height, provide more bearing surface, and an overall reduction in wear rate.
Yeah.
I think this would be a good time to clarify, though, that when you're working on these mine shovels, and let's get right into it, is that you're not just replacing their parts, you're enhancing them.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. And swing systems in particular, we want to make sure that all of the components that we build are compatible with what the OEM would build, so that fitment isn't an issue, that there's not going to be any questions with regards to performance. That said, there are known issues with some of the components that the OEM has built. We seek to look at those issues and come up with solutions that work for our customers. Obviously, again, because it's so invasive to replace these machines, they can't afford to have a mistake. So the improvements that we've made, we seek to test out and validate well before they would ever go onto a machine. And they do deliver real value. The 495 swing gear here, as an example, the OEM offering for this component is a single piece casting. So there's the gear that we're looking at here, but underneath it, it's a cast pedestal base, and everything is machined as one component, and it's also replaced as one component. So one step that we're taking to make that innovation and save our customers downtime and cost is making the gear section replaceable, so they can leave their existing cast base in place and put a replaceable gear in.
Something like that. What is the communication when that? Because are they coming to you asking for that, or are they coming asking for that entire assembly to be replaced? You go, no, we'll actually do it this way.
Yeah, it really varies customer by customer, and machine type by machine type. We're focusing on the Caterpillar 7495 or the Bucyrus model. In that particular case, we're the only ones in the market that have this offering, and have developed it with the feedback from our customers as to not wanting to have to replace the entire component, wanting a gear that they could either replace if they have a catastrophic failure, or one that they can extend the life on by simply actually picking it up off the machine, rotating it 90 degrees, and setting it back down. You now get to wear on much different areas.
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, so it's not about just replacing that single part. It's actually about rotating and maximizing, because that wear is going to be consistent in one or two areas of the machine.
Yeah, depending on which different version of the shovel that you're working on, the swing systems may be at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock, or 11 or 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock on the machine. So that's where the majority of the wear is going to be. So if now you take that gear and rotate it 45 degrees or 90 degrees, you've got more wear surface to utilize over the life of that gear.
But with the standard OEM, that's one, that whole thing needs to be replaced.
Correct.
Wow. So, okay. So when is that transferable? You said there's different machines. I was looking, I got some notes here, and there was, you've got a list of different machines that you've worked on. Can basically any mining shovel have this system, a version of this system put in, or some compatible?
I think the better way to look at it is L&H is capable of manufacturing any type of swing system. They're both going to have their nuances, and the offerings that we're going to have for them will match that. But we're able to accommodate any of the Caterpillar 495, 295, 395 swing systems, as well as the P&H or Komatsu, which go all the way from a 2300 series machine up to a 4800 is their most recent model.
Kaela, I want to bring you in to sort of understand what clients, when they start that conversation, I guess if they've got existing machine, they're not usually calling saying, we got a great situation here. So can you walk us through sort of that problem solving, the approach, finding out what needs to be done, scope of work, just that whole process that people are going to go through?
Yeah. So the partnerships we've had with our customers have been invaluable. That's why we like to just work with them on what are you having trouble with, or what product do you have that you'd like us to improve. So we go through how much life are you getting? Are you happy with the products? Is there anything that you would like to have done differently? We look at the design side of it. Have you had premature failures? Is there a material concern or anything like that? And that's where we're able to streamline a lot of those processes for our customers, because we do have our internal engineering departments at 3 of our main facilities. And also we have a lot of engineering team in our technical sales and product line management and things like that too. So we're able to have those technical on-site conversations with customers and then improve the products throughout that, and that's why we enjoy having those conversations with our customers and developing those close relationships, because we don't want to just make it just as good as it was. We want to find out, is there a way to make it last longer, work, better for them?
One thing I want to understand as well is what you said. This is for what machine?
This is for a 495, a Caterpillar Basira shovel.
Okay, so for the 495, could this go in every 495, or will there be a use case that you go, well, this is the right replacement? Like, I'm just trying to understand, is it by machine, or is it even by the environment they're in? Like, how does that all sort of play out?
So it varies too. So I know it varies between, it might appear as though the same machine, but the importance of our sales and our when we're quoting a project is to verify, is this component an exact replacement for another machine, or have there been post upgrades, modifications done, different machining, different components, minor improvements? So that's where it's very important for us to identify what machine is it, but also have there been any upgrades, and do we need to account for those upgrades too before we're providing that product?
It's funny. Before I asked that question, I didn't know. I thought that might be a dumb question, and apparently it's not. So one machine is not the same as the other, even if the model's the same on the side.
Even location is something that can separate our offering. So this particular gear is made out of a cold weather steel intended for northern Alberta -40. This same grade of steel might not be appropriate for a mine here in the Southwest. So we take that into consideration too when we're coming up with our designs, to make sure that the material selection matches the application where we want to go with it. One of the other things that came to my mind, Kaela, when you were talking about working with our customers, come up with solutions, even for swing systems. So we had a customer in Canada. Typically these systems get anywhere between 45 to 55,000 hours is about what a customer would expect to see or benchmark on these swing systems. Well, one of the customers had a lubrication failure at very, very early hours. So they saw a lot of pitting and a lot of damage to the rails and rollers themselves. We worked with that customer to bring those raw components in and remachine them, essentially taking off the damage, but still utilizing all that meat that was left on both the rails and the rollers, and provide them with a custom solution that saved them cost and of having to buy a whole new assembly.
I want to go back, because you said if a project could take like up to a year, that how do they sort of manage? They have they've got 5 of these shovels, so 2 of them are going out of commission. How do they sort of manage that, and how do you work with that? Because then you've got tie line. If this machine's tied up, there's all that sort of navigation that you have to do as well.
It's really there's a dichotomy there, in that there's instances that even we're going through right now where, yes, the component is supposed to go to 50,000 hours, but something went bump in the night and they need something very, very urgently. we're able to not only come up with a solution for what that long-term fix is, but with our field service expertise, we're able to dispatch field service technicians who have not only the equipment to lift the shovel up to do the maintenance on it, but also the expertise to, okay, what is the temporary solution going to be? How can we work with our shops to expedite that solution and limit the downtime, knowing that in 6 months, 12 months, they're going to need a whole new system. It still allows that machine to operate, even though it may limp along in some cases until they get to that replacement window.
I saw a note about not lifting the machine for repair, but something like do you actually? I don't even know how to ask the question because I don't know the terminology. But you're actually lifting the machine.
Yeah, so that kind of goes into how this system works. It's essentially a large bearing on the top side of the machine, where the revolving frame and everything that attaches to it. There's what we call an upper rail that gets bolted to the revolving frame, and on the base of the car body is where the swing rack or the swing pedestal on the 495 is affixed to. So that encompasses a gear, which is driven by pinions from a swing system, and then in between that is a lower rail and then a thrust rail. So all of those components you can't just replace by piecemealing them in. You physically need to lift the entire upper half of the machine above a point at which you can slide all of those components in. In some cases, the machine is lifted and the actual the lower portion of the machine is actually propelled or pulled out from underneath the machine, and all that maintenance is done outside of the machine. So there's a lift system that's required for that.
Yeah, we have our on-site milling capabilities as well.
That's correct.
Right? With
Yep.
their field service. So depending on the condition of the revolving or the car body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we have milling equipment too that they can go out there and true that whole surface up before replacing it with the new components too.
So you really have two things happening at once. You have the preparing the machine, you have the actual milling that's happening here. Well, I guess three things, but then you also have maybe field service that's helping that machine continue operating so that you can, this is getting built.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
So getting built and actually being installed, that's one of the most critical pieces of putting a new swing system in, is making sure the repair is done correctly. And that's kind of what Kaela was alluding to, is that car body over time at 50,000 hours, it requires a lot of TLC to get it back into a condition that it's able to receive these swing systems. So our technicians are able to come in and conduct those field service repairs, machine them back to an OEM specification, which is very difficult. They hold a very tight flatness tolerance. And if that's not maintained, it's directly going to impact the performance of the swing systems. So that's part of that turnkey trusted relationship that L&H has with our customers, and why they come to us for their swing system needs. It's not just the parts, it's not just the service, it's the overall value package that L&H brings to the table.
We're talking a lot about the swing system part. Is there other components around, or is that the main part that's focused on?
Yeah, on the rope shovel, this particular machine, that's the primary component that we would be targeting to use and build components for on this VTL.
We kind of quickly went by it, and I wanted to circle back to the mining side.
Yeah.
For just different components that you're doing, like the crushers and that sort of thing. Can you walk us through a little bit about what this machine would be capable in that stream?
Yeah. Kaela, you've been coordinating and quoting all of this stuff, so
Yeah.
why don't you run through it?
Yes, we have a lot of milling capabilities or a lot of ball mills, rod mills, different things like that are running in a lot of the local copper mines and in the aggregate industries.
So what component of the ball mill would be getting?
So you could do essentially the majority of it. So you have the discharge and feed heads. They go on the end of the mill shell.
Yeah.
You can also build mill shells as well, do all the turning work here.
How big of a mill shell would this do?
You can go up to 16 feet in height, but it depends. So if it's a multiple section mill shell, a lot of times they'll have, they'll be split in three sections. So you can do the individual sections of them, turn the diameters, and then machine the whole patterns.
So if you were doing like a sag mill or something like that, then it'd be be done in parts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we could fabricate it and then do all the stress relieving work as well, and then bring it on this machine and do all the turning and the milling work, which is a huge advantage having this machine to be able to put the holes in the top flange,
Yeah.
and then also put our 90-degree head attachment on there, and then do all of the radial holes around it as well. For
Just
the alignment.
all on one machine, one spot.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah.
So it's really advantageous. We can do rebuilds on those components as well. We're working on one right now, a discharge head for a local customer.
Yeah.
But also the other industries too that this machine just naturally is built for.
Yeah. So it's sort of a mistake to think of this just the scale of it. It's also the precision.
Yes. Yeah. It doesn't loosen. You would think that you can loosen up and you can start talking in fractions or, 1/16 of an inch or something like that. But a lot of times you're still just as tight as 2/1000ths, 5/1000ths perpendicularity,
Over
varies.
30 feet.
Yes.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
With the crushing components, one thing that comes to my mind is I wonder how often people are just simply not knowing that there's that refurbished element, or how often are they putting in just a replacement component when maybe you could have machined a higher level for less wear. Is that it's sort of kind of trying to get to them soon enough that they know not to do it?
Yeah, and a lot of people don't necessarily know that we can even do that type of work, or that that's something that we have the equipment to work on. So, on the big gyratory crushers or the big, even the cone crushers,
Yeah.
you can do the machining work on their main frames. Or on the gyratory crushers, you have the spiders, you have the top, bottom, and middle shells as well. So the timing for them to get a brand new part, a brand new casting, that's typically what they are, cast components. So the time frame for them to order that and then get that is significant.
Yeah.
Obviously, depending on where they're located and the shipping cost for those massive parts, that is factored into the quotation, so they understand that. But the turnaround time, I think, is more of the value for them, especially if they're down and they're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars per day in production. That's where having a company like us with our engineering capabilities and our technical expertise, we can look at it and figure out, okay, we can modify this or fix this for you in a much quicker time frame.
Well, you get those you see those downtime numbers, like the per hour cost of an operating mine, and it is staggering.
Shocking.
Yeah. Before I wrap up, I do want to. We're sitting in this amazing machine. So let's talk a little bit more about it. What is the scope? We did talk about it a bit of Mine Expo, but we weren't sitting in it, so we got to do it again. What was the scope of work? I mean, so this was a shop, and you dig a 25, 30-foot hole and start dumping concrete in and bring in an engineering team and contractors and...
Yeah, so that was a massive learning experience. I've never moved a machine of this size. Basically said, here you go. We bought this machine. Now you got to run the project and get it here. And
did they ask or tell?
I was voluntold. Voluntold. Yeah. So, so 21 semi-trucks to get it here. Played a game of Tetris to, figure out where all the parts and pieces were going to go while we waited for the foundation for one to be designed and for two to be put in, and then put it back together with as much, if not better, accuracy than it was already running at in the other facility. The first question, luckily, one of the first few questions we asked was, do we have enough power on site to actually run this machine? And we found out, no, we didn't. So that was a whole another sub project with our local utility company and the city of Tempe to get approvals, drawings, permits, get the new equipment. Yeah. So the whole sub project that landed was where we had to actually add power to get this machine installed. So that was a whole learning experience as well on what permits do you need? How do you get the two organizations to work together? And then how do you shut power off in a manufacturing facility while also manufacturing components and then getting that type of work done? And all just kind of having that time frame to make sure that this machine was up and running within the proper time frame. So
what's the I always like to do some level of leadership on this. How did you feel the first few days of managing the project as opposed to the midway point, the end? Now looking back, how would you even approach it differently? Something major like, I mean, this is a just by looking, I can tell it's a multi-million-dollar, you're talking 2 years investment. How did you approach it initially? If you were to look back, what would you now bring to the table to do something like this?
Well, not knowing, how to put a project like this and install a machine at all. I would like to say that I got all my information from Google and
Right.
just said how to install a really large vertical turning lathe. No, I approached it from just a strategic standpoint. I guess that's all that I kind of know what to do with an engineering type of a background. So it's like, okay, what do I need to do first? Find a team to disassemble. Obviously, I want the same team to reassemble. So just kind of knowing that the importance that L&H had on this machine and the investment that they were making, and knowing that I wanted them to have a piece of equipment that improved our capabilities and our efficiencies. And I didn't really want to cut corners on this project either. So I needed to make sure that I had the proper companies that I worked with. I think the thing that I would probably do different going forward is, I learned a lot about the different the design, knowing now on some areas where maybe I should have made a couple changes in the foundation to make it a little bit easier to maintain. But otherwise, for the most part, I had really good partners, really good people to work with, a lot of support from the company itself, which was huge, a lot of trust, for me to run this type of a project. And, I did keep very detailed notes and spreadsheets. And having the design stand my background, I was able to, if they said, hey, this piece is coming, then I was able to draw it on a little map and say, okay, this is where it's going to go. But it was a super fun project.
It kind of strikes me as an interesting project because you've got trucks, you got to actually put stuff around, like you said, while you're putting the foundation in place, you got to so there's a very sort of raw industrial feel, but then there's a really refined engineering precision. You're kind of more so than a lot of product, you're really meeting those two worlds. Really interesting.
Kind of all of everything that I had learned up until that point was very beneficial. And then the working with people within our facility to say, hey, I'm going to put this really large part over in your shop for a while, and just please be patient with us while we do that, but also keep doing the work that we need to do to then send the parts out. So, kind of work around everything. That we didn't just stop production on, any of our components, but it was working around it, keeping things clean. And saying, hey, we're going to have someone in here at 1 a.m. pouring concrete. So just drive around the concrete.
You don't have a football-sized extra warehouse just sitting on the side there. You can just put everything out nicely and then wait 2 years before you put it in.
We're in the middle of a city. Just we don't have a lot of space.
Amazing.
So it's a lot of logistics and a lot of planning, but I'm very happy with the people that came down to work on it.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that the one thing that really struck me listening to you was, and it just speaks to L&H, is, we invested in this machine, but L&H's leadership, the ownership, invests in their people.
I was going to say, this is as much of an investment in people as it is in the machine itself.
Absolutely. And it's I think it's in our DNA, and why I think we've been successful at providing that value to our customers is because we've been empowered as employees to represent the company, to do big projects like this, to go out and sell and design swing systems, to work on some of these projects that, very few people have ever taken on. The NASA job being that was the first and foremost
topic we covered when we had L&H on years ago.
So it's so neat to be in an organization that really believes in their people, invests in their people, and with the intention of driving the industry forward.
That's actually leads me to I'd say my final question is, how does, when you bring something like this online, and I just saw a little bit of the other facilities, and I'm going to try to take a walk through if I can to see more of it. But every time you do this stuff, do you feel the difference in the team now, like even the sales team, and when you're doing you're quoting these projects out, all of a sudden you have this edge in the industry, and there's a confidence and then flows through the team when you have that. Have you both got a sense of that?
Absolutely. And I think that's been one of the biggest not selling points, but one of the nicest tools in the bag, we'll say, to be able to talk to a customer and say, hey, I can tell you about this all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Hop on a plane and come to Tempe and watch it being done. And
Yeah.
we had a host of customers come through, both for swing systems, mill components, that have come through. They're able to see firsthand, okay, I understand why there is value here, where the accuracy is coming from, and it's not just a sales pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the important part. We love for our customers to come here and to see what we're doing and to, build that relationship, build that trust, to understand, like, we know they're not giving us cheap parts to build for them or work on. So we want to show them our facility, answer their questions, just build that rapport with them that can last years, and we're not here to just do one-off projects for people. We want to build them something that will last for a long time and get that feedback. So it is really nice to be like, we can do this work for you, and how about you come check it out? We would love to have a lot of people here, and those are the partnerships that we want. We want the people that trust us, that want to do the work with us, and that they understand we care about their products just as much as they do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the culture that I think L&H has built for years. So.
Well, I think anything I add is going to take away from what you just said, because that was perfect. And there's not a script behind you, is there? No. Yeah. Thank you both for coming on. Thank you for having us here. It is incredible to be a part of this, and it's quite. I spend a lot of time in a studio, so it's kind of an honor for a company to bring us out here and actually be sitting in your facility, and it's well worth it. So thank you, and I hope we do it again.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Of course, we'll have lots of links. You can connect with both our guests. We'll have a link to their LinkedIn as well. But you can go visit the L&H website, and we'll have links to more project details about this machine and also other products they've had. So go check that out, and we will see you on the next episode of Mining Now.